Hey there, I'm Ami Devereaux. If you're a subscriber to this channel, then you may have been wondering where I am. And I will explain all of that at the end, as well as what's happened to my face from when you might see it 10 months ago to 8 months ago to today. But in the meantime, let's get to work. So in my last newsletter article, I wrote about apophenia. Now, apophenia is, well, it was first diagnosed as a medical condition in people who had schizophrenia. And what it is essentially looking at data and seeing patterns that are simply not there, and then using that pattern that you've seen to draw a conclusion, make a decision. And then what I wrote about primarily was the way in which we do this, regular people, not people with mental illness, in our day-to-day life all the time as we look at data when we run our organizations. And as a result of seeing these non-existent patterns, we make decisions and form strategic themes and create initiatives based on these patterns. And those are mistaken decisions. Now, the reason I want to revisit this topic is because I was already thinking about revisiting it when I did the last newsletter, because it's also something we do with people. And the funny thing is that I was writing this article about apophenia in our perception of people, and then I had a direct experience of my own using that same kind of way of thinking in order to characterize my own mom. So what happened is that last week, my mother died. She's been ill for about 18 months, and so this wasn't really surprising. But as it happened, I was the person charged with making arrangements, talking to the funeral director, the relatives, crafting the obituary, talking to the rabbi who would officiate. And I was putting together all of these pieces of her biography and recollecting memories I'd forgotten about for a long time, talking to family members who were sharing these kind of golden treasure moments they had of her. And I realized that the picture I had in my mom that had been formed over the last couple of years of her illness was completely inaccurate. And it was inaccurate right up to the end. But what had happened is that while she'd been ill, my brain had taken a few select data points, a couple of moments of behavior, a few anecdotes here and there, and it had formed a picture of a person who was a victim, a burden, perhaps blissfully ignorant of this horrible thing happening to her body. I diminished her. I made her something that she wasn't. And then as I was putting together this actual information with real data and real patterns and real trends, I saw that I had done that. I had distorted who she was in my own mind and made her so much smaller and so much less powerful and opinionated and of service and generous and kind. And it was such a moment of recognition because, as I said, I was already writing this article. So here's the thing. This weird apophenia that we take and apply to humans in our life is ubiquitous. We do it everywhere. We do it with our families, as I did, but we also do it with the person standing in line in front of us at the deli. We also do it with the guy on the train next to us. We also do it with our direct reports and with the guy in HR who we haven't met, but we've already formed an opinion of. And the way that we do it is problematic, not because we do it, but because we do it unconsciously. We have no idea we've done it, although we have the power not to do it. So what happens is, let's say you're in a meeting with two other people and a third person joins and that person says something that rubs you the wrong way. You take that one data point and maybe you then talk to the other three people that were in the meeting and they agree that that rubbed them the wrong way. And then together you all form a generalized characterization of this person that they're socially inept or socially tone deaf. They can almost never outlive that one moment, even though it was just one moment, especially because since all three of you saw the same thing, you've taken that one data point and now sort of multiplied it by your three individual impressions and voila, three data points, it must be true. We do it both in a negative and a positive direction. So sometimes, let's say you're a founder and you've been struggling trying to figure out what is wrong with your sales team. And then seemingly all of a sudden, in the course of a mere 2 weeks, they close 3 huge deals. You think to yourself, thank goodness, they've turned the corner. The sales team is now on track. But there is really no pattern there that justifies that conclusion. In fact, it's been 2 weeks and they closed 3 deals, and maybe those 3 deals have been in the pipeline for 2 years, and maybe one of them was made with one of the sales guy's brother-in-law. You haven't explored it. It is not a pattern, but we take that pattern, we draw a conclusion, and then we make decisions based on it. But more often we do it in a negative direction. We draw a conclusion about somebody, and that conclusion caps the opportunities that we give them, or it caps our willingness to try them in a new kind of role, or our trust in giving them a big project or letting them innovate a solution to something. And we do it all the time, and we do it with less and less and less data because we have fewer interactions in the remote world. The people this does the most damage to are those that talk the least. Why? Well, they give you the least data. If you have somebody who's loquacious and outgoing, who contributes in meetings, who speaks up and offers pushback, you get a lot of data. So you have opportunity to revise your opinion. You get a chance to see that that thing you thought was a pattern is not a pattern. It was an outlying moment. It was a behavior that was out of character. But when somebody doesn't talk a lot, they give you very few data points. And as a result, you're more likely to draw a sweeping generalization conclusion about that person who may have had 1 or 2 moments that were, let's say, bad moments or that rubbed you the wrong way. And now they are locked in that characterization for the rest of their tenure in your organization or the rest of the time on your team. The thing is, this is not like unconscious bias, which we bring with us to a new job. This is a bias that we are creating on the fly simply by being lazy, by not really asking the next question when we think we see a pattern. Because all we would have to do is say, was that really a pattern? Do I actually have enough data here to establish any kind of conclusion? Could it have just been a strange moment or a bad day or a great day or a really good day for the sales team, but they still need training and they still need a new sales leader and they still need better leads? We don't ask that question. So in your organization, it's really important to begin to scrutinize what you think are patterns. Patterns are not always what they appear to be. Random data points that you can connect through a good story about them does not mean that's a real pattern. We can make up stories on the fly about anything given any data. We can watch somebody across the room across the mall in the food court and come up with an entire biography for them with no data except for how they're sipping their soda through a straw. So take the opportunity to begin to be rigorous about determining whether the observations you're making and using to formulate generalized ideas about your team, about your boss, about your wife, whether those are genuinely data-rich patterns that you should extrapolate from, or whether you added everything to it and simply took some random events and made them into something more than they were. I hope this is useful for you. Please subscribe to my channel down there somewhere. Also, you can get all of the source material, references, and everything else that I use in anything I say here by going to my website, beyondbetter.io, and subscribe to the newsletter. It is a blog. It only comes out every 2 weeks. It does not have any spam or sales stuff in it. It really is just thoughtful, sort of reflection on issues that make a difference in how you run your organization, craft your strategy, and optimize your leadership. Now, if you're still here, I'm assuming it's because you want to know what happened to my face and where I've been. So if you look at the last video I did, it was 7 or 8 months ago. Back last June, I got diagnosed with Bell's palsy, which is when, for no apparent reason, half of your face becomes paralyzed. They think it's viral, but that's a whole other story. Anyway, most people get over it in about 3 or 4 weeks. I am at 8 months. And while it's much better, much, much better, it has been very, very tough, and it's still not gone. As you may have noticed, this eye doesn't blink at all. Anyway, for the last 8 months after doing that one video, I just honestly could not stand doing any more videos. I hated how it looked. It made it really difficult for me to speak. And so I decided to take a hiatus. But I think it's better enough now for me not to feel too guilty of making you watch me. And I think it's going to get better consistently. So I'm back. But if you've been waiting, or if you're a subscriber, thank you so much for continuing to subscribe. And I really appreciate your ongoing support. Okay, bye.